apply within the TMPD unless it is covered with the approved budget. The Chief of Police, in her position as the group head or the head of the department, has certain authorities under whether it's automatically delegated per legislation or procedure and protocol, or whether it's purely from the MFMA. So she can manage her own budget that's been approved and allocated. So if it falls without that budget, there's a process where we, like I'll use the example of upliftment of funds. A document is drafted by the department, recommended by the Chief of Police. Then it goes through the processes recommended by the CFO, and it's finally approved by the accounting officer, which is the city manager. So in such cases, the city manager would sign off on upliftment of funds. The CFO, I'm not 100% sure to where his authority stretches, but I do believe he has the authority, in our case it's a he, Mr. Manisi, has the authority, and I speak under correction, to work within the budget that has been approved for the city. He can allocate and reallocate certain funding. Whether all of that must be signed off by the city manager or not, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Can you please go back to paragraph 11 of your statement and just clarify that? And please also explain to us what is the size of the APSS? How many people are in that division, and who has authority in relation to signing of documents? Like, for example, if an invoice comes in from a security company, who authorizes it for approval? And also who has authority in terms of issuing of work or additional sites or ad hoc security services that have to be provided? Because when you say, I did high-level management and oversight, it can mean different things to many people. So just explain it the way you understand it.
Noted, Commissioner. I can elaborate on that. What is meant by high-level management and oversight over the division, I'm sure you would appreciate from my testimony already given, I have a full-time job position as the Deputy Chief Training and Innovation, which is a full-time position. Then I've got another full-time job as the Chief of Staff. Then I've got a part-time job in coordinating Step 3 grievances and arbitration matters. In a department of about 5,000 people, you can imagine how many cases I need to deal with on behalf of the department. So my high-level management and oversight over APSS probably took about 15 or 20% of my energy and time to just ensure that from the onset where we received this function without a proper handover, as is, foot stewards, back to the department, my main aim was to, on a high level, to management to understand what this big thing entails. What is this big thing that I'm dealing with now? How many sites do we have in the city? Is it a true reflection of what we have? How many sites are priority? Why are they priority? How many sites do we cover? We don't even cover, I think we cover less than half of all our sites, but I believe Deputy Chief Spies might have given much more information on that, so I won't repeat that. And then also to ensure that the day-to-day running, which is done by Director Malachi and his team, is just there's oversight on that. So I didn't have hands-on experience on most of the matters. Some of the ad hoc sites that were referred to us as an example, I made sure, because it would cause additional expenditure, that I went on site personally with the team to determine what the status is One of such sites would be Klipgat, waterworks, where a contractor finalized their duties. No planning was made prior to that for security. We just got the information through to my office that within a month's time or so, this company is going to vacate. They're done with the project. Now we must secure that. And if we didn't secure that, there could have been damage or vandalism into the millions. So as a city, as a department, we were basically forced to do so. And then we followed that process that I've already explained. So my high-level management and oversight was very limited. And I had no reason to mistrust at that time Director Malachi. Seemingly on paper and what I know from him then, he was an experienced senior manager in security. He had support, not much, but he had support, and they ran that division. The amount of people in that division, I can't go level to level, but it's approximately just shy of 1,300 security guards on contract still, not even fully absorbed into the city with all the benefits, but I believe Deputy Spies might have addressed that also, I'm not sure. And then some level of supervision and some level of management, and then you got to Dr. Malichla. I forgot his name. I'll get to his name just now, and Mr. Mashlangu and Director Malachi. And part of the function in those middle levels or junior levels, we had teams that's supposed to do, obviously, also the checkups at the different security sites to ensure that the contract that was awarded, a 2.9 billion rand contract, is managed correctly. And if a security company indicates that they, for argument's sake, place 4 people, security guards at the site, that actually happens. So I had no, at that stage, mistrust in the system and wanted to ensure that they run with the day-to-day running of this division and running the contract. On the sideline, we immediately had to start, as I said, with the fact-finding information,
Commissioner Bolhuis, I don't want you to go too far ahead,
okay,
because it may be that in your statement you're still coming to these things.
To some of it, yes.
So maybe just deal with the role you played in the allocation and invoices, their
okay,
approval. And then the rest, I think the evidence leader will lead you through your statement.
Thank you. At a certain stage in my stint as the caretaker, I required Director Malachi to provide, once invoices have been signed by the operational component and then signed off by himself, he had to bring those invoices to me for co-signing. So he would approve the invoice after all the checks have been done, and I would co-sign. That was just a management mechanism to ensure that on paper there is nothing untoward. The allocation of ad hoc sites, it's not a written down process, but it was the practice that at least I had in place, that my office needs to be informed of ad hoc sites, like that explanation I gave about Klipgat and others. Because of the possible operational impact, and I am talking about that later, but I can just say this, it had to be brought to my attention because of operational, financial, and contractual impact. So never did I give the impression or the instruction to Director Malachi or his management team that they have a free rein or a carte blanche pertaining to the allocation of sites. Because you have to work within a budget. You have to work according to your priority plan. and the sites that you have to secure. So if you then do your own thing, we're not going to stick to those things.
Commissioner, you say that you would approve because on paper everything would appear to be proper. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, yes. On the ad hoc appointments, did you not notice that there was a disproportionate allocation to, for example, an entity called Gubis 85? I think it's a PTY Ltd, not a CC, yes. Gubis 85. Did you not notice that it got a disproportionate number of allocations compared to the rest of the entities? Its allocations were far higher than those of other entities. I'm asking this in the
Yes.
context of your testimony that on paper everything looked proper. That may well have been so, but it should have, or rather alarm bells should have rung when this entity's name keeps popping up whenever there are ad hoc allocations.
Thank you, Commissioner. Look, I did not, in the time that the invoices came to me for co-signing, I did not pick up anything immediately, and I didn't have any mistrust at that time. However, and I do give evidence about this later, when the director of MAS, Management Admin Support, Director Veli Nwandule, he's also responsible for finances, when he indicated that there could be some irregularity with invoices. At that stage, the finance section has indicated both to me as the caretaker and to Director Malachi that they will have to follow a certain financial procedure, which then became the procedure they needed to follow, not bringing invoices back to me for co-signing. So that then stopped, and that financial procedure that was implemented by the financial section was then followed. And then subsequently, the director of MAS, Nwandule, picked up the irregularity because they will be in a better position to pick up on this because they have the contracts, the SLAs, the monthly expenditure, and if there's any further expenditure than what would have been the baseline from previous months or allocated to a certain service provider, they would pick it up. And subsequently, they did pick up. But I do give evidence about that a bit later.
Commissioner Bolhuis, at paragraph 13, we do mention a report which I want us to have a look at. You will see that on the very file that you have, that report would appear as the very first document. So it will say number 1, just after the index to the annexures.
Yes.
Yes. Now, the Chief of Police, Yolanda Faro, testified that when she received an instruction that there has to be a transition of the APSS from the City Manager's office to the TMPD's office, that she tasked you to oversee that process. With that in mind, she testified that there was a report. That's something that also you touched on. That report was meant to facilitate the transitional period of that department. Would you accept that ideally you would have been at least the beneficiary of this report to assist you with the transition?
Yes, definitely.
Yes. And Commissioner Faro also testified that she received this report, unfortunately, somehow 9 months later. And this report came from a lady called Baledi Marota. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
In fact, you should be aware because you were copied on that email.
That is correct.
Yes, and the correct date would have been the 10th of April 2025.
That's correct.
And lastly, on that score, you would have, at least at that stage when this report came to your knowledge, you would have ceased acting, or at least being a caretaker of the SP.
That is correct. I already provided a full handover in writing in the month of March
Yes.
to the newly appointed Deputy Chief Spies.
Yes. But I want us to have a look at this report because it was meant to benefit you, or at least to assist you in the transitional period. We did say in your statement that we want to touch base on some, I think, 3 topics. You will see that on top, for the record, can you just read at least for the benefit of the Commission, the title of that document?
The title of this document, and it's from the Office of the City Manager, Commissioners, Report on the Transfer of Asset Property Protection Services Unit from the Office of the City Manager to the Tshwane Metro Police Department.
And then can you move to the purpose of that document, or at least the report?
The purpose of this report is to transfer the Asset Property Protection Unit function from the Office of the City Manager to the Tshwane Metro Police Department temporary with immediate effect.
And then can you move into the background mentioned on that document?
I can. The background, paragraph number 3. The Executive Mayor issued a letter dated 15 April 2021 titled Placement of Asset Protection Function and Personnel in City Manager's Office. The said letter stated the following. The implementation of the processes regarding the absorption of security guards is a critical deliverable for this administration. Extensive consultation and discussions have taken place on this matter to ensure it occurs seamlessly. It is for this reason that I took the decision to have this process placed and administered out of the City Manager's Office through the department led by Mr. Nava Pillay. Furthermore, it is critical that the current asset protection function and personnel that have been identified who are based at the Tshwane Metro Police Department temporary are moved to the Office of the City Manager to report under Mr. Pillay with effect from 30 March 2021.
Just there, Commissioner, what do you understand by this initial move? And paying attention to what is mentioned on the very first sentence of what was supposed to be a letter of the 15th of April 2021, just to give us context of what your understanding is.
Involved in this process. Yeah, firstly, I was not involved in this process at all. And then that first sentence, the implementation of the process regarding the absorption of security guards is a critical deliverable and so forth. My understanding of this is we have had, I don't know the time frame, but I think it's from 2019 onwards. We've had this council resolution that mentioned absorption of security guards. And there was a total mentioned, etc., etc. I don't have the information in front of me. But the absorption means that the security personnel that is in your service through a contract, whether that is a certain time period contract or a month-to-month contract or service delivery contracts that you have in place, when you do an absorption, you look at bringing those people, those security guards, into the employment of the city. They then become fully fledged employees. That is how I understand the term absorption.
And with your limited knowledge, as you said, you are not involved in this process, but what I'm tapping into is your experience, as you said, that you have 34 years into at least working in the city of Tshwane. What is the situation now with the absorption, if any, of the security personnel?
Thank you. I believe we have...
Do you mean, Mr. Musigiri, in 2021 or after reabsorption back to TMPD? What stage are you referring to?
Commissioner Bolhuis, more directly to after when the unit was handed back, because it seems to us that the purpose then was part of it was the absorption. And then now, when it was handed back, what is the situation? I mean, the more pointed question would be, was that done within your limited knowledge?
The purpose, as I understand, was the transfer of the function. So the question of the absorption followed more that purpose. So the same people who were doing the function within the TMPD then get absorbed within the office of the city manager, but the purpose being more the transfer of the function, as I understand it.
Part of the question would relate to the debate that has been going on as to, I suppose there was a debate, or at least there has been a debate as to the pros and cons of outsourcing and absorbing some of the security functions into the city.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. I can speak to that. My belief is that from this time, and I'll come to the part where the function has been moved back to the Tshwane Metro Police Department, but from this time, 15 April 21, up to the time that the function was moved back to the Metro Police Department, not much has moved in a direction of full absorption of these security guards. Since the appointment of Deputy Chief Spies, there has been a real movement. I do know for a fact, I've sat in some of the meetings, there has been consultative process between Deputy Chief Spies, the department, and Group Human Capital Management and political leaders and leaders of the city to fast-track this process, and there is a plan in place that has been adopted by Council. I can't speak to it, I don't have all the information, but that this absorption process is now moving forward. This will mean that certain benefits will come in at a certain time and other benefits will come in at another time. So that process is ongoing. I hope that touches or answers the questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Bolhuis. Can you then read into the record the last paragraph of point 3 under the background?
The last paragraph states, Commissioners, the instruction by the Executive Mayor for the Asset Protection Services Unit to be transferred from Tshwane Metro Police Department to the Office of the City Manager was implemented as directed. The transfer included the movement of staff reporting under Asset Protection Services Unit and Cost Center 4923 for the budget and expenditure management of the unit.
And then, most importantly for us, would you move to the next page under the topic human resource related and just deal with that, what is at paragraph 4.1.1.
Do you want me to read it?
Read into the record and then we can just debate what that meant.
Noted, 4.1.1. Under human resources related matters, the subheading is staff and organizational structure. The organizational structure of the Asset Protection Services Unit was not amended during the transfer of the Asset Protection Services Unit from Tshwane Metro Police Department to the Office of the City Manager. Therefore, the transfer of the Asset Protection Services Unit back from the Office of the City Manager to Tshwane Metro Police Department will not affect the organizational structure of both departments. The Asset Protection Services approved structure consists of 4,106. Of this, there are 31 official employees, there's spelling mistakes there, apologies, on a permanent basis, and a further 1,287 contracted security officers.
I think this ties with the question that was raised
Yes.
by Commissioner Khumalo earlier on. Can you then explain to us on practical levels, what did this mean, especially when you have to deal with the human resource, and in terms of what you were receiving now as part of your responsibilities?
Yes, I can.
Maybe before you do that, the mathematics here doesn't seem to add up. You have 31 officials on a permanent basis and 1,287 contracted security officers, and yet in the first sentence you say there was 4,106.
I can explain that, Commissioner.
Please.
I'll make it part of my explanation. Firstly, Commissioners, if I received this document in time for my caretakership, I would have not agreed in fully with the statement made here. You can't just say something and then it becomes the truth. It doesn't work that way. So just to say that the structure is moved from one place to from one reporting channel to another reporting channel, and there is no implication or no difference, doesn't just make it the truth, or doesn't make it correct, or doesn't make it practical. Let me explain. Let me first explain then, Madam, what you have brought up, and then I'll carry on with the rest of the explanation, why I don't agree with this. It makes provision in the statement at the end that the structure, and they make reference to the approved structure, consists of 4,106. So the structure they're referring to is the organizational structure of APSS. Those are the boxes, as you well know. You've got your divisional head, all the different levels, and so forth, all the way down to the bottom levels where you will find 1,287 contracted security officers. So I don't have a problem with those figures at that time because I can't verify it. I'm assuming it's correct. The 4,106 is still the approved structure, but most of those positions are vacant. That's why the mathematics will not make sense. But then to transfer an approved structure, in this case 4,106, to the Metro Police and make an indication that there is no implication or an assumption is incorrect. It is not the practice of a municipality nor a department such as the Metro Police Department to have an elaborate structure with vacancies on it. And it's clear that in the time period from April 2021, let me get the date right, 15 April 2021, up to the point where this function was transferred back to the Metro Police, that there was no, I can't say no, I don't know, there wasn't a serious attempt and project in place, plan in place to fill the vacancies of this approved structure of 4,106. Now this is moved back to the Metro Police. Now the Metro Police sit with all these additional vacancies. That's the first thing. Most of these vacancies will then be unfunded. Why? Because there wouldn't automatically be a budget in place to fill it. You've got funded vacancies on the one hand and unfunded vacancies. If you then look externally, when the AG looks at a municipality and at our different organizational structure, macro, micro, the AG would indicate to us, and has, that you can't continuously for years on end sit with so many vacant positions. Either fill the positions or remove the vacancies, because it becomes an audit query. So that is where the problem comes in for the department. Hence, we've started a process, and I'm in the middle of that process. That's one of the functions I do as the Chief of Staff. I do organizational design and coordinate that process within the department. The structure that we have received, yes, approved at that time, still approved because it's still on the structure, approved structure, is not a feasible structure for the Metro Police. It's not implementable, it's not practical, it's not funded. We are restructuring that process totally, and it will probably be a lesser number because we are not in a financial situation, not the department, not the city, to fill 4,000 positions. I hope that gives clarity to your questions.
What I'm struggling to comprehend, Commissioner Bolhuis, is this. You are already inundated with 2.5 posts or positions. And just on the human resource element, and given what you just discussed now with the commission, would you say this was the best decision